modus operandi, to lie, to lie, to lie.
Welcome back to the Monaro Zone, where we shine a light on the hidden corners of governance, corruption, and the battles being fought right here in the Snowy Monaro. Today, we bring you a story that should send a chill down the spine of every property owner. A story of land taken, laws ignored, and a council operating behind closed doors. Meet Charles Colano and Jennifer Downs, two residents who woke up one day to find that the Snowy Monaro Regional Council had decided to take their land, without consultation, without fair compensation, and, as it turns out, without even following the law. The council issued a proposed acquisition notice, PAN, against their property near Dalgety, but there was one glaring problem. The required ministerial approval was never obtained. The result? A nightmare of legal battles, blocked roads, and a bureaucratic wall of silence designed to wear them down. In this episode, we sit down with Charles and Jennifer to hear their first-hand account of how their peaceful life was upended by a local government that seemed more interested in avoiding scrutiny than following the rules. We'll uncover how they fought back, what they've learned about the system, and what every landowner needs to know to protect themselves from a similar fate. Because when local governments start making land grabs without oversight, the question isn't just what happened to Charles and Jennifer. The real question is who's next.
Bit of my background. I left very early from Australia and have travelled and worked around the world for some 30-odd years. And then finally returned back to Australia. And Jenny and I decided, well, we had enough of the city life, so would move out to the country. We seen an ad in the Canberra Times for a plot of land down here at Dalgety. Now, on one of my trips overseas, Jenny saw it, came down with a friend, looked at it, loved it. When I came back, we bought it.
What year was that?
2003. So we have been there ever since, but in the meantime, we were backwards and forwards until 2012 when we retired and came down here full time. And it's a magic area with the mountains, the quiet, and we just enjoy it. Jenny was on a property out of Dubbo for quite a while, and we just wanted to get out of the city, and this one just appealed. Just the advert itself, it was a small advert that said, if you don't mind me mentioning, said 250 acres, $1,000 an acre with a house thrown in. And we had 4 kilometres of river frontage. So that sort of attracted us. And
that sounds like heaven. Has it been a heavenly experience since then?
Apart from this council, yes, it has. And it is absolutely marvellous. The quiet and the peace and the animals. We run the chooks and the dog gets free rein everywhere.
Did you go fishing?
I don't, no. But we have, my brother comes down occasionally. We have people come down and, they go fishing and catch some good trout.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So could you provide the listeners with a brief summary of what's happened to you since purchasing the land?
Well, it was the blocking of access. And from that point on, this is where our perception, and if you read the council business papers, council became involved where at a point it's written, I am only quoting from their business papers, where 2 of the neighbours stated they would only give their land to council if council took our land. Not the road that was the current location, but our land. So and that's where it just continued on from there. Then we came into the council's, I'll go through September 21 council meeting, 19 September 2019 meeting, they put forward a resolution to take our land.
Okay, how many acres were they taking?
Just the first part, the 5 acres.
5 acres of land, okay.
But unfortunately, what they did in the business papers, they produced lies. On the day of that meeting, I rang up a certain councillor. I received the phone number, I rang up that council and I explained the lies in that business paper. That business paper was withdrawn. That business paper with the lies, etc., instead of being in the public forum, they put it into confidential. Jenny and I attended. At the lunch break or the dinner break for that meeting, the Mayor came up to Jenny and I and stated that Council had already decided to take our land at the pre-briefing meeting. 2 councillors were not at that meeting. It's clear on the video. Council had a resolution 400-19 which showed they were not at that meeting. Yet, under GIPA applications, years later, what Council presented to the Minister were the minutes of the meeting, the confidential minutes, which showed that both councillors had voted for that motion.
Let's just back up for a moment. What's the mechanism by which council can take away your land?
It's the Compulsory Acquisition, Just Terms Land Acquisition Act. It falls under that.
For a public good, they can just confiscate land?
Yes. But it must be for a public purpose. They can't just take it to give it to someone. But that's exactly what happened here.
And did they compensate you for that land?
No, they gave us the public road. That is what the courts state in various judgments, because you get a council public road to your property or through your property that more than compensates the value of that bit of land.
So the 5 acres they took, you got no monetary compensation.
No.
Did you get at least a bitumen road out of it?
No, it's still rough as anything.
So it's just a cut road?
Well, it was the same old track that's been there for a while. And when the weather comes in, there's more potholes, corrugations, a whole lot on it. Council are very hesitant to come down there to fix those 2 kilometres of road.
Why would they be?
I guess it's the history of the area. I'm not 100% sure.
Goodness gracious, that's very chilling. That just for public good, that council can come in, take your land, provide no compensation, no improvement, and that's what's happened in your case?
Yes, indeed, but more importantly was the reason they took it. And as I spoke earlier, when 2 neighbours agreed to give their land on condition council take our land, that's exactly what happened. But the main point is, why did they do it? There was one property at the end that council approved years ago without legal access, and now they try to appease one property, which is basically using public funds for a private purpose.
I reckon that neighbour must have had friends in the council.
They do. Unfortunately, if you go back in the history of it, you will find that our previous mayor had dealings with this property right back and other properties along Werrong Road, but never disclosed an interest. The first part of it was back in 2006 when an application was put forward to council stating that this particular property wanted to expand its business, basically. From that point on, 2006, you went through to 2008 when council formally agreed. They adopted a budget of some 450 odd thousand to construct that road. But then they had to re-evaluate, and they upped that to $580,951 to do that first section of road. But then what is disturbing is council actually took $110,000 from a recovery grant that was obtained for the bridge over Rendezvous Creek on Big Yard Road. However, the other 50,900 came from the road resealing program to do this one road.
So what was the total expenditure on this one private road?
Well, at the moment, this is what we got, but unfortunately, council did not provide the costings for the sealed section they had to put in. So this, as a rule of thumb, it's $1 million a kilometre. So on this one, you're looking at around 600-700 metres. So you could add another 500,000, 600,000. So you'd be looking up $1 million plus.
And this was specifically for just one set of neighbours?
Well, this was for the winery, as council basically stated in their own resolutions. This is the minutes of the resolutions.
No. Okay, so at what point in time were you then locked into your property?
It was after the hoo-ha. We were denied access from January 15 through our northern boundary.
On what grounds?
We'll be trespassing if we went against our neighbours' wishes. To get to that point, I'll mention one thing. We had an agreement to move the road from going through our property along the boundary fence because, as I said, we've had cattle killed. We had calves. We came home, there's a calf laying dead on the road. So we agreed, went to all the neighbours to relocate the road along our boundary. We had the machinery. We had a dozer, excavator, a neighbour had a grader. We all agreed it'd be just a simple matter, cut a track and done. A couple of months later, we received a letter after no action from a solicitor stating that unless you leave the road where it is, we're going to lock you in. You can use your alternate access. We didn't have an alternate access. They locked off the northern boundary with the threat of trespass if we went that part. So they allowed us to go out the west and then go back on this new rerouted road. And that's where it survived for quite some time until for some reason, and what it appears, as soon as council finished their surveys and everything else, we got locked in. So it was a combined, in my view, it was combined effort between the neighbours and council to look as though our road was still the current location, which it was not. So from that point on, we got locked in. We had neighbours or people from down the road, they'll go out and do our shopping. We ran out of hay for our cattle. So we got a local stock and station agent. He came in. They had to actually walk our cattle out 8 kilometres to somebody's property for them to be loaded on a truck. We could not afford to feed them. It was very poor year. So...
Wow. So did this lockout happen after the property acquisition or so?
No, before.
Before.
This was before the acquisition, a few years before that. So...
Wow, this has been a long fight for you guys.
10 years or more.
Wow.
We're still going. We're not giving up.
What would you like to have happen? If you were the council, what would you like them to do for you?
Well, based on the November meeting 2019, the way they took our property, in our view, was unlawful.
And that was through the Land Acquisition Act?
No, it was through council's decisions.
Wait a moment, the council could take your land just through...
That's right, but they had to make a resolution to do it. And the resolution was not valid in our view because they had not rescinded the earlier resolution of 178-15.
Which was?
Take the land through its current location. As of January 15, wasn't through our land. So it's a complicated story, but if you know councils, they're good at complicating things and stonewalling you at every turn.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happened here. And that's why the documents really that we have show the true nature of council's actions in this matter. But what I'd like to see happen is a bit of honesty in council, a bit of integrity. You know, instead of what it appears to be, people can get away with whatever they like do it for their mates, and then after they leave council and nothing happens. It's as though they're feathering their own nest or their mate's nest. That should stop immediately. And that's why, to be honest, I will keep fighting, or we will keep fighting and exposing it. And that's why at Reuben Rose's, at the last meeting, Councillor Rose raised the issue of the minutes, full and accurate. Council have not been providing full and accurate minutes, which I spoke on. But one thing I'd like to say, I was asked a question by Councillor Rose, and that was, did I notice any inconsistencies in the webcasts? What I did not recall at the time, if one looks back on Council's website, there is no webcast of the 19th of September 2019 meeting, and you ask why? Because the business paper was wrong. They actually lied in the business paper. They knew they lied, and they withdrew it to cover themselves.
What lie was in that business paper? And why did they remove it?
Well, it stated in the business paper that a section of the Crown Road had only recently been discovered to have been purchased. Now, that Crown Road, the two sections they mentioned, 5 and 7 I believe their numbers were, they were purchased in 2012. They were registered in 2012, given a lot and DP number in 2012 at the start. Council started collecting rates in 2012 for those, the Snowy River Shire Council. Snowy Monaro Regional Council continued to collect rates. Now, to go on public record and say we just discovered this, it's a nonsense.
So they were claiming that they didn't have knowledge of this road?
Yes. Oh, no, the two sections of Crown Road. Yes.
Even though they were collecting rates on it?
Yes.
That's a hard buy.
And unfortunately, when you look at under point 3 economic, it just shows the friendship angle of council, because there it does state, while costs have not yet been determined. How can you make a decision, council that is, when you haven't determined what the costs are?
And this was to develop the road?
Yes.
Which potentially cost ratepayers in excess of $500,000.
Well, this one, I think I'm allowed to say it. I know it's cost, at least from our side, council had to pay us over $45,000 in legal fees. Why? Council solicitor misled the valuer general, and he was found out. Council themselves had to pay another 35 or so thousand for fencing, because the valuer general determined fencing was required. I don't know what council paid their own solicitor. I'd imagine it's well in excess of 100 to 200,000. So just on that alone, council will be able to tell us, but they won't. But all this money spent, like I said, for one business at the end of the road.
A private benefit.
Yep.
How could this have been handled differently?
Well, quite easily. If council came, we had meetings with council. We said, look, we'll do this. We'll do it at no cost to the ratepayer, no cost to anybody. We will build the road.
That's very generous of you, Charles. You do that for free.
Yes, we had the dozers, we had the excavators. One of the neighbours said he'd go to council to get some culverts to put up a little gully there, and it was all done. It was all agreed. But then council or the neighbours backed out, and council backed out, and they didn't want to know. They wanted to take the neighbours' point of view and take our land.
That 5 acres of land?
Yes, yes.
Which you haven't been compensated for?
No.
Have you considered taking this to the courts?
What I am considering now more is the way council, the Snowy Monaro Regional Council, handled Resolution 443-19, in the sense that if you look at the Local Government Act, there is a procedure in place to rescind resolutions. Council did not. And to give the full picture, I addressed council, I think it was in 23, at the end of 23 or something like that, 22. Anyway, the then Mayor, Narelle Davis, I raised the issue that resolution was not rescinded. I received a letter from her, 23 December 22, I've got it here somewhere, which stated Resolution 178-15 was not rescinded. So how can you make another resolution without rescinding the first one? That is the main issue. And we thought about it, we're talking about actually raising a case in court. Why? Nobody wants to know about it. We have written letters, just to be brief, to the then Minister for Local Government, to other officials. We wrote to the Premier. We wrote to another Premier who took over from that Premier. We wrote to, I think it was about 6 or 8 politicians. Nobody wants to know. But the most interesting and disturbing thing of the lot is, why did our Deputy Premier, and I'll mention his name, John Barilaro, become involved in this little 1.9 kilometres of road? Why? We went and actually I'll tell you what would be the easiest things. If somebody wants to, there is a submission number 92 in the New South Wales Parliament entitled Inquiry into Acquisition of Land in Relation to Major Transport Projects. It was by Jennifer Downs and it was date received on 2 July 2021. That will highlight basically the whole history of Werrolong Road, of council's lack of governance, lack of following their own policies and procedures, and it does indeed set out where the minister had full knowledge that what council had put in their acquisition notices, 9 points were false, 1 was irrelevant, as the other 9 were incorrect. Nobody wanted to do anything. It's like there's a big shutter or a brick wall that you just keep banging your head in. Nobody wants to know. So no, we're not giving up. And that's why I mentioned this. My actual inquiry is submission number 56.
Okay, where can they find that information? If they want to look it up?
You look at submission 92 and just type in inquiry into acquisition of land in relation to major transport projects. It's on the New South Wales Parliament website. You'll go into submissions and there are about 100 submissions there.
And it will go into detail about how you had land confiscated.
Yes.
How you were locked out of your
yes
legal access.
Yes.
Goodness gracious, this is very troubling stuff. Has the council ever attempted to justify why they bypassed this legal requirement?
No.
Is it just in the too hard basket to explain?
I think, as we mentioned earlier, if you have friends in council, it's amazing what lengths they will go to cover it up and basically to make life a misery for you.
If you oppose, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that this is a big private benefit to specific parties. When you sought legal counsel, what were the key takeaways about your rights and your options at the time?
The legal options, to be honest, we didn't have the money to pursue them. We could have proceeded through the courts, but that's how the council and everybody works. You don't have the money, basically you're gone. But one I'll just relate that to one other issue where in the case of the Tropic Asphalt's case, I don't know if many people know it, there were 3 breaches of a development consent. It started off. That matter went to the High Court. It went through about 7 or 8 court cases. We, the ratepayers, funded all that. So unless you have the money, you cannot take them on.
Yeah, I see that more and more, that in a lot of these cases, it's not necessarily about who's right, but it's really unfair in the sense that the council can use your ratepayer dollar to action something against you, and then you have to front extra capital just to fight what they've put up against you.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen this more and more, including with the water tank disaster.
Yes.
Where people that have had asbestos washed on their property have to prove that it wasn't.
Mhm.
Even though this was the largest man-made natural disaster in our region,
Yes.
somehow the victims themselves have to prove and come up with the funds themselves to defend themselves when the council is using their rates to antagonize them. Oh, it's very disturbing. Did the council ever provide a clear explanation why this relocation was necessary?
No.
They just said, we're going to do it, no consultation.
No, sorry. I back up on there. We did have a couple of meetings with the then mayor, back from the Snowy River Shire Council days. We were there, we had a meeting, and we went through it. And we explained to them too why we didn't want it going through our paddocks. And we ended up at Cara Creek and had discussions and whatever. And if you got friendships in council, that's the golden ticket. And unfortunately, that's what we're trying to highlight and bring out into the open.
Well, were any alternative solutions presented that could have avoided taking your land?
We presented them, council didn't. No.
And when you presented them, council just disregarded.
Disregarded, yes.
I'm not sure if you've heard the recent Bombala rail trail issues.
Yes.
But that's very similar. You've had people taking care of the railway track for more than a decade, and then the council has this smart idea, just disregard what the experts or the people that have been volunteering to take care of the railway have suggested.
But in that instance, and with all these decisions, that is the problem I see within elected officials. If they don't have the morals or the moral fibre to work for the community, one must ask, why are you making these decisions? And that is what is disturbing for us, and me in particular, that I honestly don't have much faith in, for example, a gang, because they are not working for the benefit of the community. And yes, I was at that meeting about the water tank, and actually I was totally, well, I'd say disappointed at the outcome, for want of a stronger word.
No, likewise. No investigation, no accountability. We still don't even know who gave the order to fill the tank.
That's right.
Everything's still confidential. It's horrible. And there have been private payouts.
Yes.
And we're not sure who got paid what.
Yes.
Even though some kind person did send an Excel spreadsheet detailing a lot of important information. Thank you, Jonathan. Let's go back to what it was like when you were locked out. Tell me, what happened when you were physically locked out of your property? How did you manage your daily essentials like food, transportation, medical needs?
Well, we couldn't go anywhere. Fortunately, for the couple of months we did not have medical appointments. And in that time, what we did, we had to approach Crown Land, etc. Because there was a Crown Land, Crown Road running across our property along the boundary with the next door neighbours. So we applied to use that Crown Land. Eventually they agreed, but there was a lot of trees. So we had to get local land services out to do all the environmental checks, etc. And they finally approved that we could clear this land for a vehicle, but I had to clear it by hand. So this was another thing. And once we got that eased the pain a little bit of getting in and out. You know, we bypassed our blockades and went and joined up with the road. And like I said earlier, the problem was, and we were fortunate enough that we did not have a medical emergency, but I'll raise one issue in this instance. While we were locked in, we had a cow that was stuck in the mud at the side of the creek there. And it was right up to her belly, a bit high. She could not move. She had a calf there. I came across her, I called this friend from down the road. He drove in, had to stop, park on the other side of the fence because we were locked in. Climbed through the fence and we managed to get that calf out, or the cow out. From there, we could see it was in shock. And this friend, who was very knowledgeable with animals, rang up his son to bring some medication down for the cow. The son came down, he was met at the grid and told to leave immediately by our neighbour and take the medication with you. So we could not get it. I immediately rang the police, and the police, I'll give them their due, they went, and within no time at all they were there. They picked me up, we drove out, picked up the medication, came back in, he dropped me off, medicated the cow, and fortunately she survived and the car went back to suckling on mum. That is meanness personified. And that is, I won't say it's the worst, but to actually put animals in a state like that, what are we as humans supposed to do?
What a truly frustrating situation. It doesn't seem like this is a simple story, though. It seems that there are multiple failures in this story. One is the council's response to all of this without consulting or going ahead with what neighbours have agreed upon, as well as a lot of legal failures where the council has just confiscated things without ministerial approval, as well as neighbourhood issues going on here. It seems like it's a really complex story that's compounded by bad governance.
Bad government especially, yes, I agree, but I'll just highlight one more point. When they issued a proposed acquisition notice, the then CEO signed it off as general manager and put on that acquisition notice 5 lots to be acquired. The minister only approved 3. So that in itself, if you follow the law, that was an invalid document. However, council solicitor actually executed that document knowing it was invalid. Our solicitor raised the issue, then it all got buried in a big quagmire. And this is what I mentioned earlier. If you got the money, you could have unravelled that quagmire. But not having that financial backing, you got to go with it. Now, by that invalid proposed acquisition notice, it was subsequent, instead of being withdrawn because it's invalid, the government allowed it to be gazetted.
So even despite being an illegal move, they went ahead with it anyway.
That's right, yes.
Very troubling. Now, have you been put on a UCC list as well?
Not at the moment, but I have had limited responses to a number of issues I have raised with council. But fortunately, not at the moment.
So you haven't got that badge of honour yet?
No.
For those that don't know, a UCC is when you can't communicate with the council. An unreasonable complainant conduct.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've also impressed me with your GIPA documents. A lot of times I'm told that council is very transparent, that not much is confidential, and that you can request information. You've done this, and you've impressed me because you've sent me an A4 sheet that's essentially blacked out.
Yes.
Tell me about that. How did you come across that? What were you after?
We just wanted to know the actual council resolution. If you look at the business papers and the minutes, it has the resolution, but no record of voting, etc. And which is strange, and like we were saying, they should be true and accurate minutes. So what we did after a period of time, thought, no, blow this. Let's start going to the Office of Local Government. So we put in a GIPA application there, and lo and behold, we got all these documents. And
were those redacted?
That one you were talking about was.
From the OLG?
There were a lot that weren't. And it really shines a light onto mismanagement, deliberate falsification of documents, knowingly presenting false documents. And that was the shocking part of it, to actually get all these documents, but your road already been gazetted, knowing it being gazetted, contrary to law. What can you do?
Let me confirm something. You requested documentation from the local council and you were denied those documents.
No. Initially, back in the start when we got there, we've got a lot of documents from the Snowy River Council that showed how they allowed subdivision to go on without legal access. The second part of Snowy Monaro Regional Council, we never really put in a GIPA document for them because we thought, well, these are the minutes, they're the true minutes. And it wasn't until we were sitting down once just thrashing things out that we thought, bugger this, let's go to the government and see what they sent to the government. And that's where we got these documents, the one redacted. But the biggest part of that is it shows the record of voting is false.
Explain that. What do you mean that the record of voting is false? How could that be?
Well, you have a record of voting where the council is present. Actually, their names go on the record of voting for each particular resolution. Now, what we discovered at the 21 November 19 meeting, if you look at the actual minutes on council's website, it shows all the councillors that were there. Apologies had to the deputy mayor and the councillor absent. So that was all well and good. But then when we got this GIPA document, it shows both of their names on the record of voting. How can that be when they were not at that meeting? We were at that meeting and we were told by the then mayor at the dinner break, can I mention his name? Mayor Peter Beer, who came up to Jenny and I and said, oh, council's already taken your land. We took it during the pre-briefing meeting. We left that meeting disgusted, absolutely disgusted.
How can they do that at a pre-briefing meeting?
Well, if you look at their minutes, code of meeting practice, it says they can't. If you look at their code of conduct, they got to treat everybody equally, all decisions are equal, etc., blah, blah, blah. But they did.
And that was to acquire your land?
Yes.
That's so troubling that they can just take your land with the majority of councillors.
Without following the law, yes.
Without following the law. That's so disturbing.
The bigger disturbing thing, or the most disturbing thing is, how do you stop it? And the only way is by speaking out.
That's what I want to ask. At what point did you decide to take this public?
Well, we've been, basically after it occurred, I've been writing many letters in the Monaro Post. We've attended pretty well most of the council meetings. I have been there in a public forum for I don't know how many. Quite regularly I'll be up in a public forum. So I'd say it was just after the event when they took the land, and yeah.
And have the local media and organisations been supportive of your issue?
No.
No? You think that, I don't want to say a name, but you think that other media or businesses in this region would be keen to hear the story?
Well, I'll retract that to a point in that the letters I published, there was quite a few. There was about 20 odd, I think. They published them. But what was disappointing is where they could actually redact part of yours. So, for example, I put one in the last one I actually wrote. They deleted a couple of paragraphs which were essential for the whole content. They were not in it, and I thought, no more.
That's very sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, but at the end of the day, it's just for the community benefit. I don't know, everybody's got their priorities, I guess.
Have any community members reached out to you with similar experiences?
I spoke to the Povies Road lot. They were in a similar situation. Council rejected their application. There was the Bundara Road one, and I'll explain this. September 2019, Council withdrew our application. In the October 19 meeting, Bundara Road came up. That was Resolution 119 for council to acquire land for the four-wheel drive club. That got knocked back. Council refused it. The following month, under confidential, they took our land. You make sense of that? And there was...
Bungara obviously didn't have the right friends.
Right. There was Capanana Road as well. There was Perkins Road. Council, no interest.
Yeah, they did it for a private benefit for somebody else.
Yeah.
Have any councillors been of assistance to you in this matter?
At one stage, we met up with 3 councillors. We basically put forward the case where everything was wrong. It didn't matter. Their names appeared on the record of voting in the confidential section.
Oh.
It's as though it's a charade. You can talk till you're blue in the face, put out whatever evidence you want. That was the old council. Now I believe there are 3 independents here who have the courage of their convictions to do the job that they're elected to do for the people.
You're welcome to say their names. I'm sure the community would love to know.
The Councillor Rose, Councillor Williamson, Councillor Thaler.
They have your confidence?
I believe they do, yes. And
they have my confidence too.
yes, because there is no point in writing to council as a person. You'll get just an automatic reply or next to no reply, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, no, that's been my experience too. What would you say to the people who say that these kind of land acquisitions, that they always follow legal and fair procedures and that you're just spouting conspiracy theories?
Look at the law. I'm quite willing to post these documents online or somewhere if somebody wants to read them. They're there. They're for everyone. But I'll refer back and read Submission 92 to the inquiry into the New South Wales Parliament. You'll see for yourself.
No, that's good. I like that. And let's talk about the emotional and financial toll. I'm sure that this experience has affected your well-being in many ways. Yes,
it has. Well, the emotional side, fortunately, as a couple, we're approaching this year's 30 years together.
Oh, congratulations.
So
you've lasted longer than our council has.
But I think it's that strength between us that's got us through, because if you look at the emotional toll, where you can see it's wrong, the lies that are told, people don't care, and you're struggling, there's nobody else, so you only got each other to rely on.
But there's been a financial toll as well?
Well, there has been, in the sense, like I mentioned earlier, council had to fork out some $45,000 in legal costs. But that wasn't the only cost. We paid legal costs that the Valuer General would not refund. So there are many dollars in that. Well, all up, fortunately we had a very good solicitor. And to quote one example, what council solicitor used to do was send out 20 or 30 page letters. Now, whatever they charge per page. Our solicitor would summarise it in about 2 pages to 3 pages maximum. So that kept our costs down, and we're grateful for that, eternally grateful. Very good. But as far as other costs, well, apart from the emotional, it was the feeling of usefulness or uselessness, where you are not accepted. You're basically a leper because you're now being targeted not only by the neighbours but by council. You have been ostracised, and that's how, in a way, we have been. And friendships, we don't have any more. All the neighbours. However, saying that, we're quite fortunate because we love our life there. There's serenity, and we've got the animals. And in a way, they're better than people, some people. But no, we just enjoy it. Occasionally we get a visit, from a family member or whatever, but it's just the tranquility and it's a life we love. But it still hurts. of what's going on. We're
Injustice.
trying to move on from the injustice, yes.
If you could go back in time, would you have done anything different?
I don't believe so, no.
Is there anything you could have done different?
Well, I guess we could have pushed harder for the road to be along the boundary, but once you get agreement from everybody, how much more can you push? There was a total agreement. So really, I don't think so, but in a way, even though it's took an emotional, physical, financial toll, I think the lessons in life that we've learned are rewarding.
And what are some of those lessons?
Well, in a way, do not hate. No, there's no point hating, no point in blaming anything or anybody. They've got their lessons in life. Whoever wanted us out, they've got their reasons. And in time, I don't know what you call it, karma or something, they will receive their rewards for their actions. So we as a couple, we're not vindictive. We just want truth. Now, I'll add one little point on that as well, why the truth is so important. While we were living in Canberra and I was working away, Jenny was working full-time, she was studying. She has a law degree. She was admitted to practice. Now, the oath was especially relevant. Jenny doesn't lie. She took an oath. She doesn't lie. We don't lie. So whatever we talk about, there is no lie or falsehood or try to manipulate something. No. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Done.
If you could sit down with the people responsible for this decision, forgetting about the legal elements of it, what would you want to say to them?
I'd basically say, well, look at yourselves. What do you really stand for? For elected officials or even council employees, what is your real motivation for being there? You're supposedly here to help the community. You're supposed to help people in need, not create these big walls and boundaries and whatever else. So have some compassion for those less fortunate than possibly yourself.
What advice would you give to other property owners who might face a similar situation?
Well, there is an avenue, I believe now, by what council done with Werrolong Road, that they have set a precedent in acquiring land for a private benefit. Now, council says that's not in their plans or whatever. What I'd suggest is people are in the same situation to start getting in contact with each other. People who are in the same situations, you need help. You can't take counsel on your own. So we're willing to help, no problem, because we've been through it. We can advise, not the legal advice, but just the games council will play.
Thank you. That's very generous of your time. After everything you've been through, do you still have faith in local government?
No.
Thank you for that contribution, Jenny. Is that good legal advice?
No.
What would justice look like for you at this point?
For us personally, it'll be for council to admit their errors, which highly improbable, near on impossible. But from our point of view, would like them, an independent, to review council's decision based on all the evidence, just as a water tank, to show the council did not act in according with the law.
You just like that review?
Yep.
And if it came back saying that they acted inappropriately, they wouldn't have to rescind anything?
Well,
You just like that assurance that...
Well, at the end of the day, what it means is somebody else will benefit from that decision. And I think that's the sum total of it. If we can help others manage the problems with council, that's great.
It's so shocking that this is so similar to the water tank issue in the sense that the worst man-made disaster not a single apology, not a single person held accountable, not a single investigation. And for a lot of people that I've spoken to, they have not even taken accountability for what happened.
Yes.
Not even, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. We'll try to do better in the future. Not nothing.
Yes.
What is your hope for the future, both for your property and for the larger fight for accountability? What's your hope?
Well, for the property, we'll just keep working at it. We keep improving it as much as we can. And as I said earlier, we grow oak trees, so we're planting them all out. For accountability, I think the sad part is we only got 3 councillors who really believe in accountability. And until we get a couple more on board, we're going to be fighting a losing battle till that occurs, which for the whole Snowy Monaro really is a shame, because it is a nice area. It just needs guidance from people who want to do the right thing for the community.
And finally, in your own personal lives, what's your hope for the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Keep staying together.
Charles and Jennifer's ordeal is not just a personal tragedy. It is a warning to all property owners about the unchecked power local councils can wield. Their experience exposes a deeply flawed system where bureaucratic mismanagement, secrecy, and legal loopholes can strip residents of their land, their rights, and their sense of security. Despite being locked out of their property, denied fair compensation, and subjected to years of legal and emotional turmoil, Charles and Jennifer have refused to be silenced. Their battle has not only highlighted the failures of the Snowy Monaro Regional Council, but also the broader systemic issues that allow such abuses to occur. They have fought for truth, armed only with perseverance and an unwavering commitment to justice, despite the financial and emotional toll. Their case serves as a stark reminder that governance should be about serving the people, not hiding decisions behind closed doors or favoring private interests. While the council may have hoped to bury this case in bureaucracy, Charles and Jennifer's resilience has ensured their story is heard. They have made it clear that silence is not an option and that only through public scrutiny and collective action can real change be achieved. For them, justice is not just about reversing their own loss. It is about ensuring that no other homeowner faces the same nightmare. Their message is clear. If local governments are not held accountable, then no property owner is truly safe. The fight for transparency and integrity in governance continues, and it is a fight that concerns us all. Thank you again for joining us on Monaro Zone. Stay safe, stand for truth, and never stop fighting for what's right. Share this article, spread the word, and demand change. The truth belongs to all of us, but only if we have the courage to claim it. Together, we can shine a light on the shadows of governance and bring accountability back from the brink. But remember, the next move isn't up to them. It's up to you. Because in the Snowy Monaro, transparency isn't just a policy, it's the difference between light and dark.
It rises, it won't decay. Your web of lines will soon fall away. The people are watching, their voices amplify. No more modus operandi to lie, to lie, to lie.